Oh, James, your internet. Fuck.
What? Fine.
It is now.
No,
We will see.
I didn't have any problem then.
Right, we did.
Yeah.
As long as my end's all right, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but ours is going into your end. We are going into
Yeah, I
your
know.
end. And if your end is not good enough,
Oh, go into my end.
no, you ruined it by acknowledging it.
Thank you, Alex.
Hi guys, we're going to put some stones on our podcast. Hello and welcome to the Three Takes of Stupidity. In this trilogy, it's the 2025 Oscars. Either winners, runners-up, just were generally linked through a newspaper, or we just think that they should have won one. This week, we're doing 2025 Oscar winner, A Real Pain. Directed, written, edited, casted, ran, and was also responsible for head of security for the whole production by Jesse Eisenberg. I'm joined by Chandler Monk,
Hello.
James Robbins,
Hiya.
and I'm Alex Clinton. Let's get into this beautiful story of friendship, sprinkled with little drops of Holocaust.
I don't know how.
I
I don't know how I feel about that one.
That
I don't know how I feel about that one.
Another trilogy, your same three hosts. What have you guys been up to this week?
I will go first, and this week I watched a bit of Beverly Hills Cop 3, because it was on Sky Movies, and I intended to only watch 10 minutes of it, and I watched the whole thing.
Nice.
I think Beverly Hills Cop 3 might be I think it goes 1, 3, and then 2 for me.
I've only ever seen the first, to be honest.
I think that's quite common for films to go that way. I feel like the Fast and Furious, like Tokyo, it's like 1, Tokyo Drift, 2 Fast, 2 Furious.
And then 5, and then 4, and then Fast,
And
and then
11,
Furious, and then 7,
Yeah.
and then 10.
And then 14.
Alex shook his head. Is it because they're all shit, really?
No, it's because you mentioned the Fast and Furious. This is how we lose listenership.
But family.
We're not family.
Doesn't matter if we're by blood. We're family. Family in here.
Really want to make a Paul Walker joke.
Go for it. Do it and see if it sticks.
What a car crash that was. Come on. That was a nice and easy one. Comedy.
James, what have you been up to?
I finished Big Boys. Again, just go watch it. It's great. There's nothing more I need to say about it, but you will cry. If you don't, like Alex hasn't done in some of our films, you are heartless. What else have I done? I have picked up another anime which I've mentioned previously, but I didn't continue with it. But an anime called Orb, which is about the advent of science in a religious time and how you'd be damned as a heretic if you looked at freaking astrology and researched it, and you'd be murdered. It's quite brutal. The first scene has someone pyre, let's say. So yeah, it's a really good show. Quite enjoying it. What else? Yeah, life goes on. Chandler.
Me and my partner finished our rewatch of Inside Number 9. She wanted to watch it, so we finished all of those. She really enjoyed it. And then she wanted to watch more Steve Pemberton for some reason. So we watched an old detective show called Whitechapel.
Not Benidorm?
Not Benidorm.
No!
I've never watched an episode of Benidorm, actually.
You should. It's fantastic.
So yeah, it's just like it's actually quite a short series, only 4 seasons, and there's 18 episodes. But like the first series is based on like if Jack the Ripper had a copycat in like the early 2010s, and then the next series is about the Krays, and then they go into like some. You don't need to watch the 3rd and 4th series. Just watch the first 6 episodes about Jack the Ripper and then the Krays. It's pretty good. But yeah, I think we'll move on to something else now because we finished that. I might try and convince her to watch Slow Horses because I've not watched that yet.
When you say Slow Horses, I'm imagining the horse from Family Guy that has the just starts eating Stewie's head. I'm imagining the whole show with that.
No, it's the Gary Oldman show on Apple TV about like MI6 gone wrong or something. That's all I sort of know. But apparently it's supposed to be amazing.
Okay.
So I might try and give that a watch. But I also watched Daredevil Born Again.
Oh, it's good, isn't it?
I thought the first episode was terrible, and the second and third episodes were quite good.
You what?
Yeah.
What?
Controversial opinion.
I have watched something, to be fair, that the first episode definitely is like because it
CGI to shit.
Oh yeah, that's not great. So the thing is, with the first episode, yeah,
It's not great. It's fucking awful.
No, the story of the first episode is good, but there are some dodgy CGI moments because
what story?
The show went.
The whole story. Sorry, excuse me. What story to that first episode? All it is right. We need a reason. We've brought back Deborah Ann Woll and the guy who plays Foggy. I can't remember his name. We just need a reason for them to die, so they're not in the rest of the series.
Well, they're going to come back. But yeah, basically, they brought them back, and they needed a catalyst. So obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but
I just did.
Spoiler warning:
Foggy dies.
But no, I thought episode 2 and 3 were definitely better. But episode 1 was a
100%.
great start to lead you into what episode 2 and 3 are. And obviously, Foggy and Karen, they weren't in the show because originally it was going to be a soft reboot, but then they made it just continue on. So they brought them back halfway through filming. I like the first episode.
I get all the production things and decisions.
You could tell that it's a heavy reshoot episode. The fight scene's great.
No, it's not. The fight scene is not good. You have no idea what's going on. And it is CGI to shit, and they all look like fucking rubber things.
I don't think it's CGI
Genuinely
to shit. I disagree.
Terrible.
I just think it's badly edited for time's sake. There's that shot where he's like running across the roof, and it's really cool.
For time's sake, it's whole episode.
But then they cut to this like jump off a chimney, and that looks so weird. No. It looks out of place. But I don't think it's CGI. But there's some dodgy CGI. I think it's some dodgy editing and reshoot stuff. But I think it sets up the next 2 episodes really well. To say it's shit, disagree. I think is wild. To say it's like fine and not as good as the other 2, I think is okay, and I agree. But like to say it's shit
is genuinely. After watching the first episode, I was like, I don't want to watch second and third, but I had nothing better to watch, so I was like, fuck it, I'll give it another chance.
You're mental. The next 2 episodes are just him as a lawyer are fantastic. We didn't get a lot of that in the original series.
Should we get into the film? Anyone got a link to get us into housekeeping?
Alex, housekeep, please.
Housekeeping. Right then, let's get into the housekeeping for a real pain. First things first, if you want to watch it, go down to your local cinema, unless it's closed. So go further away.
Or rent it. You can buy it, and you can buy and rent it online.
Yeah, but you can
Amazon,
you can sneak
Apple,
into a cinema for free. Don't give your money to Amazon. Sneak into a theatre. Keep your local theatres going.
By sneaking in?
Yes. Bums in seats makes them feel better. Of course, Chandler does not condone anyone sneaking into a cinema. James does, but we don't.
Don't sneak into your little local cinema like a View or don't go sneak. Make sure you sneak into an Odeon, a Cineworld, or sneak into a big corporation, not an Everyman.
A View's a big corporation,
and Everyman is also a big corporation.
Yeah. Sneak into an Everyman
they're
as well.
They're just smaller, big corporations.
Don't sneak into Peck and Plex.
You might as well have just said, don't steal from McDonald's. Steal from Burger King instead.
Alex, can you please tell us the plot of the film?
So, the plot is of mismatched cousins, which is tough to say, David and Benji, on their tour of Poland to honour their grandmother. Their adventure becomes complicated as old tensions resurface while exploring their family history. This is a Fox Searchlight production, so guaranteed quality. At least an 8.5 out of 10. However, the good people at IMDb gave it a 7.1, so you obviously know that that's ran by idiots. Rotten Tomatoes, tomato meter got a 96%, and the popcorn meter got an 81%. So the population really got to sort their shit out. They're 0.4 off it. Did we enjoy the film?
You just answered the question for me. I was like, how is Searchlight using the Fox opening? Because obviously Fox doesn't really exist anymore. And you answered that for me. I was going to ask that. I was like, that was a throwback. Fox is Disney now.
No, it's owned by Disney. Fox is still a company.
Yeah,
fine. Well, fair. You
can still tune into Fox News. It's not Disney News with Walt Disney going, oh, what about all these foreigners coming in here? Oh. I just checked on all these terrorists. Yup. Let's invade Greenland. Can we all just do Disney characters doing Trump policies?
I can't do it. I can't hit myself to do Donald Duck.
Let's build a wall.
Oh, what a big wall we all built. Oh, no Mexicans are getting through that one.
Look her up.
Oh, this record has gone so sideways. Great reel that. It might not go in the pod, but it's a reel. You can just beep out some of the shit you said and just have like, yeah, Alex did some terrible things here.
I don't think we can because Disney will sue us.
I'm dead. Let's stop recording. Oh my god. Did I enjoy the film? Not as much as Mickey Mouse saying Trump policies. Someone get us back on track, please.
We have an opportunity to take all of Alex's voice impressions and turn them into little characters that reads out Trump policies for TikTok and Instagram, and I think they would slap. They'd be so good.
No, they're nowhere near as good as people on TikTok.
Again, one of our top fucking viewed videos is you putting on an old-timey 50s accent for commentary on football.
That's because all those people are dead and I can go over there.
Oh, it's fucking brilliant.
Did you two enjoy the film?
I did enjoy the film. I did. It was, I found it quite easy watching. And that allows me to put a little...
Which is a mental thing to say.
No, because it's... so Jesse Eisenberg, he talked about how he wanted to make a light-hearted Holocaust film. He was in an interview with the BFI in England talking about the production of A Real Pain. And he was like, he's not sure if there's other light-hearted Holocaust films, but he finds a lot of them are quite self-congratulatory about what they're doing and showing the history and exposing it. And they're very much patting themselves on the back and bringing this to light, where I think, his comments suggest he wanted to make a lighthearted and kind of real experience. And I think it is quite grounded in that. Like the characters are going on a tour of Poland to see what their grandma went through during the Holocaust and then ultimately end up seeing her home. He wanted to keep it lighthearted, and I think it is, but you get the character performances are brilliant, and it's less of an exploration of Holocaust, but a discussion on their characters' grief and the backdrop of their grandma's death, and then they're able to explore how their relationship with themselves and others within that backdrop. But then it's got Kieran Culkin and Jesse Eisenberg in it, so it's going to be funny and lighthearted. And yeah, it's a really different take. I really liked it.
I did like the film. I did enjoy it. I think you're right. There are massive moments within the film of grief and pain and sadness and depression, obviously. Thank you, James. And but there are also moments within that of great comic relief. Like absolute moments that genuinely made me laugh out loud. As you say, we're sort of tackling this film slightly different than going scene by scene. Yeah, there's a genuine moment at the end where David slaps Benji right at the end of the film.
Good.
And it comes at the end of like a bit of like 10-15 minutes of proper grief and everything, proper like expression of sadness and like also directionlessness within life that can happen. And that slap genuinely made me laugh out loud and just sort of released all the tension that had been in the past 20 minutes. And yeah, you're right. You're right, James. There's also a discussion to be had around this film of how people, a type of generational trauma that, me and us as Jewish people feel.
Well,
like it's always,
Yeah, so I would say that us makes it sound like we're all Jewish, but ultimately you're the one here that lives the Jewish experience, Beatrice. But it's fair. Not something me and Alex can experience ourselves.
Yeah, it's a weird. The tough thing to think about. When I was thinking about we were going to do this pod, there was one moment in my life that sort of, I think, sums this up slightly, and it was a really weird moment for me. It's backstory. I was writing my master's thesis on something completely different than this. I did maths at uni, as I've said on the pod before, and I was just in the middle of writing it. And my partner at the time, she had finished her degree, and she was just bored one night and started doing her like family tree for some reason on Ancestry.com. And, you know, she was, well, you know, I think she's still alive, but anyway.
You found out your 6th cousin.
No. So she had already said that she was like related to Alfred the Great, which is a king in England, like in the early like 700s or something. So she was doing her thing all the way back then, and like really wanted to see how far back she could go. And she started doing mine and messaging me and going like, oh yeah, your uncle did this and your great uncle did that. And then she was like, and then it came to a point where she was like, I can't find anymore. And like at the start of like the turn of like the 20th century. And I'm like, there's a very good reason for why you can't find anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think she quite understood. And I was basically messaging her going, stop doing this, please. A, I'm busy. And B, like, you're not going to get that far back, really, because of, you know. So I just remember messaging her going, can you please stop this? Because A, I don't want to know how far back you can't go. And B, I'm busy. It was a really weird moment in my life. And I think this film sort of does talk to that as well.
I mean, I think this is just a... Fuck, I don't know what to say.
I agree with you, Alex. It's hard to know what to say about this film because it's really hard to sort of put into words for a light-hearted podcast.
That is exactly right.
I love how Alex said nothing and you ran with it in a great way. I was like quite impressed with that.
That is exactly right. I mean, at the bottom of it, it's two friends trying to find out about their family. Well, it's not even two friends. It's two family members doing a pilgrimage to educate themselves on what their family went through.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it's so strange when you look at like, even if you just look at like your grandparents when they were born, you know, the world was a totally different place.
Yeah.
Than what it is now. And then their pet, like, you know, you don't have to go back very far away or like, I can be sat here right now and I can be in downtown Los Angeles in 12 hours. That could have took them weeks.
Yeah.
Like, the world is totally different.
And you're right, but there's also, and just to the point of that, they say that in the film, like when Benji and David are walking through one of the parks in Poland, they say if things hadn't have happened, they could be, they say they think of themselves as very American and all this, but if, you know, if something hadn't have happened, they could be Polish in that, then in that time. And it's quite, it's good to think. And you're right, like, you know, my grandmother, who's thankfully still with us, she was born in 1927.
Go on.
She was, you know, thankfully, born in 1927. Thankfully, she was born in England and not where her parents and stuff were born. But yeah, her life is at 30 is so different to what my life at nearly 30 is. And it's mental to think. And even when I speak to my parents, who are, you know, they're nearly 70, my parents, their life at 30 was so different. And their experience is so different just because of how the world has evolved in the past 100 years. And it's, yeah, you're like, you know, us being 30 is so different.
Yeah.
And so different to the struggles and the difficulties of life than what people even 50 years ago or anything, or 80 years ago or 100 years ago was as well. And this film is trying to talk to that, how different our lives are.
It's not just a blanket, let's look at the differences. It's how you deal with approaching it and how you respect history and how. I wanted to touch on this later more so, but the trauma, it's like the trauma tourism is a big part of the film, going to tourist destinations and the kind of duality of how do you approach learning about traumatic history that maybe your family was involved with, was affected by, and then how do you approach that in a way where you respect it but live your modern life? I mean, Benji has a moment on the train. I mean, he's quite an erratic character. But he has a moment on the train where he's like, we're in first class, like, what the fuck are we doing? And he can't deal with the fact they're in first class with a meal and staying at nice hotels when they are ultimately going to historical sites in Poland where people died and people were tortured and you know, they're having to learn and respect tough subjects. But at the same time, they go to a statue and he wants to get everyone to take a picture with this incredible statue of military army men and pose in front of it. And I admit in that scene, I immediately went, well, that's quite disrespectful. But they weren't making, and Jesse Eisenberg in the production made a point of this. It's like, you don't want to make fun of history because that'd just be blur, that'd be disgusting. And how do you approach it in a lighthearted way and respectful way? And I think the way they took a picture in the end and how we kind of got everyone on board and they get to remember the moment and have fun with the moment while also respecting the history was really nice. And I mean, I visited the some of the memorials in Berlin and felt really funny about taking pictures there of the memorial or in a picture. And I do have a picture of me at one of the memorials, but I'm not one to post hugely online, but I didn't post it anywhere because I wanted it for a memory and I'm glad I went to see it, but I didn't want to draw attention to taking a picture at these memorials. It was a real kind of mind fuck on how do I feel about that I've done this myself. And I don't think I disrespected anything, but someone might think you have disrespected it. But it's like, how do you approach these subjects and topics and situations when you're trying to educate yourself and learn it? I'm not there for a gratuitous reason. I'm there to genuinely experience history and learn about it. But how does a photo look? And I think the way Benji gets everyone involved in that scene specifically and tackles it is quite nice in the end. But I'm intrigued to see how you guys think, because my initial reaction was, I don't know how I feel. I think that might be a bit disrespectful.
I think in that scene, I sort of felt the same, but not for very long. I was like, oh, disrespectful. And then he's trying to get like everyone together. And it's like, there's some sort of like weird poetry where it's a memorial for the Warsaw Uprising against the occupiers before the Russians got there, which was kind of teamwork. And then he's trying to get everyone to be a team and go have a picture on the memorial. There's some sort of like, there's weird poetry there, but it also flips it where almost Jesse Eisenberg's character, David, is then the disrespectful one because he's just not having a picture and everyone else is having a picture. It's really weird, but he gets everyone to do like little stories. Like he gets, the guy from Rwanda, his name escapes me.
Eloge.
Yeah. He's like, you should come up and you're a medic. You're helping this guy because he's like, I'm not a fighter. And he just gives everyone like a little story and you're like, this is nice.
He's shining a light through times of trauma.
I think that's right because like, at least when in the picture they can look back at it. Well, if this was real, they would look back at it and go and have a connection to what the statue is doing. Because I've been very lucky and I've traveled quite a bit. And it's like I've gone to very touristy things and just taken a picture outside of it, like the Statue of Liberty or, the Empire State Building as like an example. If a tourist was in New York, those are two massive tourist destinations. All I've done is just taken a picture in front of them. But I've not like, when I look back at those pictures, there's no like emotional connection to those. There's just a picture of like, this is me. I've done it. I've ticked off the going to the Statue of Liberty. I've ticked it off the list. You know what I mean? It's been there, done that now.
Yeah.
And I think that also comes back of like when you're a tourist in certain places, like there's that disconnect of like, being a tourist and then like trying to get the real experience. And that's what sort of, Benji has that conversation with James, the tour guide through all of this, who was apparently originally supposed to be played by Richard Ayoade.
I'm glad he wasn't.
I don't think that would have worked.
No.
Yeah. So Richard Ayoade and Jesse Eisenberg are actually quite close friends. They did a film together about 10 years ago. And yeah, Richard Ayoade went, yeah, no. He was like, I think I'd be quite a distracting presence in this well-handled Holocaust film.
Absolutely.
But anyway, there's that scene at the cemetery in Poland where Benji has one of his erratic moments, as you would say, James, and he says, can you stop giving us the facts and figures? Like, let's try and have a emotional connection to this. And we're staying in nice hotels, but we've not spoken to any Polish people yet. We've not experienced any Polish traditions or, Polish culture. And it's like, that is like a weird thing in tourism today, I think. Because I've been guilty of it. You go to places, you see something, you take a picture, you piss off, you go stay in a nice hotel, but you're not like experiencing with the actual local culture and things. I think there's a hard line to try and follow along of like trying to enjoy your holiday but also try and immerse yourself in the culture.
I completely, I think it's
hard to do.
It's hard to kind of get a contact in that respect. It's hard to meet people. It's hard to talk. Sometimes there's a language barrier. You don't want to insult a local culture, and it's easy. Like a holiday is a holiday, even if you're doing as it was coined in by Jesse Eisenberg in his interview, trauma tourism. It's often middle class white people from the suburbs going to do it, and normally people want to, even though life is completely different. It's like you want an escape from that, right? You want an escape from your day to day. So how do you approach your holiday, even if it is tackling tough subjects? Normally people want a break, but you can open your mind a bit. I always think it's really good to kind of go travel and expose yourself to other cultures. But this film definitely does talk to, as you mentioned, trying to talk to yourself, talk to me in a way like, did I do it? Like questioning, like did I talk with a local? Did I actually do that?
This is why I sort of enjoyed the tour group that is all there's 6 of them, isn't there?
Yeah. They
all have a very good reason to be going on this type of trip.
Yeah.
Well, the 6 of them are Jewish. The people that are there, there's no like gratuitous thing of I want to, there's no gratuitous thing of them just wanting to see it for the sake of it. They all are trying to have an emotional connection to going to see these sites within Poland and the concentration camp. So that I quite enjoyed that choice in a way. And it's not just, someone like me going to America and seeing the Empire State Building just because it's there.
Yeah.
I've had the conversation with my partner before of like, I would love to go, I think love's the wrong word, but I would go, and again, want is sort of the wrong word again.
No, I don't think so. I think this is a point that Jesse Eisenberg made. You're reading too much into yourself to try and pay respect to it. No, you would like to go and experience and learn about and kind of get a minor experience of the history that ultimately has an effect on your family lineage. Like that. That's fine. But you're now beating around the bush of how you want to say that when you don't need to. I'm not going to question you for saying
yes. I would love to go. I can't wait to go.
I think all of us think that. Like, I thought that when watching this film, I was like, I would love to go to Majdanek, but then also was like, is that the right way of saying it? Is really weirdly they didn't record this in the summer, but when they're there, it looks lovely. The like Lubick, is it Lubick or Lubin?
Lubick, I think.
Looks incredible, but and the experience that they have where they take the coach to the site and like the tour guide is like it's an eerily quick journey to get there.
Oh yeah, 2 miles. 2 miles from the concentration camp. That was mental to me, and life was still happening.
So this scene, I've written in my notes. I think this whole scene is handled really, really well. In terms of the tour guide James is he's very respectful. He just goes, this is this, this is this, this is that. There's no music to the scene because unfortunately our lives aren't scored by Chopin like this film. And I think this whole scene it's actually quite short. This scene, any longer and I would have burst into tears. But it's handled really well. I think it shows you enough and the right things to basically just convey the horror that would have happened at that place.
And you see you don't see much of the faces of the cast during these scenes, but when you do, they're so sobering.
Yeah, there's one thing that sort of came out from the production side of Jennifer Grey, who plays Marsha, who's like a woman going through a tough time, like a middle-aged woman who's going through like a tough time in life. Like she just had a recent divorce, moves back to like New York from LA.
Her kids aren't calling her anymore, and
her mother just recently passed away. But anyway, so Jennifer Grey herself is a Jewish American, and she had quite a visceral reaction like during filming these scenes.
She said she felt nothing at first, and then all of a sudden she was like, I think I'm going to be sick.
And Jesse Eisenberg, a lot of that's on camera, but Jesse Eisenberg decided against sort of putting that in the film. Like her like being very visibly upset. So yeah, I think the whole scene was handled really well.
I want to bring back a little bit to some of the production of the film, because I don't know about you guys, but I thought the cinematography, although quite simple, was really, really nice. And the cinematographer, Michael, I'm going to butcher his pronunciation of his name, Michael Dymek, is a native of Warsaw. And I completely agree with this. When I think Poland, I don't think like beautiful architecture, buildings. I think it's quite bleak. And he said he thinks it's depicted too often as bleak. It fetishizes, this is his words, Eastern European Soviet communist history and the horrors of the war. Whereas he grew up in Poland and he knows what it's really like to be there. And he felt it's vibrant, it's colourful and warm. And I feel like Jesse Eisenberg said about not being self-congratulatory, but when analysing these films, it's not something I do very often. I'm very happy when I notice something that then is corroborated by the production staff. And I thought the scenery was all quite flat, and like there's a lot of just flat, straight on shots of the characters' faces, as you mentioned, Chandler, to get kind of feel the emotion of the characters. And Alex, you mentioned that it's not used that often, but when it is, it hits. But also just the scenery and the buildings, and there's a little montage in it which goes through buildings now that were that were Jewish businesses or town centres and homes in the past. I really, really loved that sequence, and they're just the images are quite still, they're flat on, and he talks about how, in perspective, he wanted to combine observations of the characters to kind of flatten the perspective, and he wanted to play with the fact that these characters might experience the whole thing differently. But I think in general they portray the scenery quite consistently through the film, and ultimately this is my view anyway. There's this, I thought, that kind of allows you at home to kind of take in how you want to view it.
I really liked the tour guide scene as well, from when they're going around Lubin. I thought it was a fantastic piece of cinema as well, because the tour guide his voice is much higher than the Atmos, if there even is any Atmos, I think, in that scene. Like, I don't think there is. I think it's quite quiet, and he's just like the second floor synagogue, and you see like the exterior of a building, and then he's like a library. Same again, and it's all shot, as you say, James. Like the colours pop, and I don't know anything about how they shot this scene, but I reckon every day they walked outside and went, "Oh, cloudy."
And they shot it in summer.
Come
and
back
said it was
tomorrow.
quite warm. So
yeah.
I just want to say one joke. When James was like, I don't know what you guys think of when you think of Poland. All I think of is British stag do's in Krakow.
I think of pierogies. I just, Alex, you mentioned a point of when the tour guide's giving the tour at these locations, and there was a note I really liked in the editing of the film. There's a point in the movie where he's giving a tour, and then all of a sudden the audio kind of he's kind of drowned out. They like lower the volume of him, and it's just makes him sound like background noise. And I liked that because I feel like we've all probably done this, but you go on a tour of a museum or a town or whatever, and you're walking and you're absorbing what's around you. You're absorbing the architecture, you're absorbing the sights, you're absorbing the attractions, but you're not really listening, and you're trying to just, take it in your way. And I just thought that there's a part of this movie's production where I just think it's so realistic. I feel like they've really captured the experience of going on such a tour really, really well. And I don't know. And so Jesse Eisenberg said something about Emma Stone's a producer of this film. And she stopped him playing Benji because she said, you can't play such an erratic character because you will not be able to direct this movie in a focused way if you're playing such an erratic character. Because this movie was a play too. It kind of was like two different plays and something else. And he normally played Benji. But yeah, she was like, don't do this in the film. And I just wonder what the whole movie itself would have come out as if he played Benji. Like, would it have been a way more less grounded, way more scattered, etc.?
It just would have been terrible. He hasn't got the energy for that guy.
I don't think
He
he's
doesn't.
charismatic enough.
No.
No, I think he does.
I think it would be similar to his Now You See Me performance, but I just don't think it's... Nah.
He plays quite a good erratic character. Have you ever seen a film called 30 Minutes or Less?
I think I have, but I can't remember it.
No.
He plays a pizza delivery boy, and his best mate is Aziz Ansari, and Danny McBride's in it. And then basically he gets kidnapped, and Jesse Eisenberg's wearing like a bomb vest things on it, and he's like got to rob a bank to pay Danny McBride to then get the bomb vest taken off. He plays it very erratically there, and it's quite good. But go watch 30 Minutes or Less to calm down after you've watched this film, people listening at home.
As we mentioned, there were six people on the tour, and they're not all completely relevant, but I think John has touched on Marsha, played by Jennifer Grey, and another person of note in the tour group is Eloge. Eloge is a real person that Jesse Eisenberg knows, which shocked me. And he asked him if he could tell his story in the movie. So Eloge was a survivor of the Rwandan genocide with him and his mother, and because of that, he felt an affiliation with the Holocaust, and he became a Jewish convert, and that's how he kind of lived his life and how he dealt with the kind of that was his kind of coping mechanism from surviving the Rwandan genocide. And yeah, I think that was really interesting. I can't think of any other film that really discusses someone converting to another religion, especially for such means. And he's often in the film, he's used as Benji and David are a bit removed from their Jewishness, I guess, and the religion itself. They feel they don't really follow the practices. And Eloge kind of brings that to them, and how that they can take their religion in their day-to-day life without being diehard, like fully religious people.
No. So as someone who isn't religious all the time, I've been brought up Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah. In the form of Judaism, I'm the lowest rung. Like in sort of British Judaism, there's like levels. There's like orthodoxy, there's reform synagogues, there's liberal synagogues, and I'm not a member of a liberal synagogue anymore, but my family's still connected to our synagogue. I don't keep Shabbat. I'm not kosher. I had a bacon sandwich yesterday. It was fantastic before the football. But I enjoyed this scene. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed that scene of Eloge. I enjoyed the scene of Eloge talking to David about David says, you're really religious, you're really connected to all this. And he's like, no. Like I keep Shabbat. And he basically equated it to, it allows Eloge to calm down, essentially, like take a break, take a breather in the everyday struggles of his own life. And I really enjoyed at the end of this scene, Eloge just going, I think you, David, you uptight person could really use that. Just take a breather. Every Friday night, just light some candles, eat some challah, and take a breather.
Can you elaborate on what keeping Shabbat? Is that it?
Keeping Shabbat. Keeping Shabbat is basically, so it's akin, so in Judaism, the day starts at sunset, right? Sunset is the day. It's not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
Because how does
a day begin at sunset? Because
back 2,000, 3,000 years ago, there was no concept of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Was there? That's a creation within, Georgian calendar and things like that. So how did people measure the passage of time via the sun? So that's why the days start differently. That's why Shabbat comes in on a Friday night. But when Christianity came and there was an idea of days, that's why it's on a Sunday. It's still the day of rest. It's the same concept as like Sunday being the day of rest for Christianity. Is Shabbat on a Friday night for Judaism. So yeah, on Shabbat is basically the idea of it's complete rest. You don't work, you don't go anywhere unless it's going to synagogue. You don't do anything. So in modern times, there's obviously levels again in Orthodoxy that equates to you can't work, so therefore you can't turn a light on, or you can't open the fridge, or you can't use the oven. That's in Orthodoxy. But then there's as you become less religious, you can drive, but you're not going to work on a Friday night, or stuff like this. It basically equates to what me and my family would do. We wouldn't keep Shabbat, but we would have Friday night dinner.
Good show.
That's akin of a very good show. But that's what it's meant to be. It's meant to be taking a breather, spending time with your loved ones, and doing something. And yes, you'd say some prayers. Again, depending on how religious you are, you'd say prayers over the meal, essentially. But yeah, that's what Shabbat is. It's basically just a day of rest, like a Sunday is to most of England.
All right, I'm just looking at Alex's face.
I was enjoying learning until the quick. Friday night dinner, great show. I was really enjoying learning.
So was I.
You took me right out of it.
I do think. How do you feel then about such things like that sound? And I think other religions have similar practices, but it's essentially now.
I mean, most religions are the same.
Yeah, but it's now like for non-religiousness, it's like meditating and mindfulness is essentially the same thing. And take kind of feels like that. I always think I'm not religious at all. I consider myself an atheist, but I think there's a lot to take from religion in that sense. I probably consider myself culturally Jewish more than actually Jewish. I think is the phrase. But again, it's about having connection with things. Like, so again, it was my nephew's bar mitzvah a few weeks ago, and it was a very small thing. It was just family in the synagogue. And it's times like that where I'm very thankful. Well, I'm always thankful that I'm Jewish. Like, I have a very, layered connection to my own history, let's say. But in times like that where, surrounded by family, we all come together, my nephew's, and he gets up and he's studied and he's practiced, and it's very, heartwarming, very touching, all those things to, be with family in those moments. I think that's what religion and society tries to get you towards, is just basically having a connection with other people, and basically don't be a cunt. I'm so happy you laughed.
Join the Jewish church. Have a great family. Don't be a cunt.
It's an interesting way to see it, though.
It's a synagogue, you cunt.
I think it's a good way to look at it, because these characters are trying to find connection with themselves, their history, their family, and then ultimately to find that loneliness is a theme of the film, especially with Benji. And I think outside of religion, I definitely think religion provides a space, especially with family and friends, to always have that connection and that familiarity and something similar. So it's
about community.
And I think sometimes without those things, you try and find community in other things, whether that's your hobby, or a TV show you like, or a sports team. And I think that's why things can often be your hobbies.
Podcasts.
Like these things can often be, people would always say that that's my religion as a joke. But it does make sense. Anything that allows you to have connection is good for people.
What were we talking about originally?
I have no idea. James asked me about it.
How have we got into the virtues of religion? I can't remember what the original point was.
But going back
Where were we?
James touches on the point of loneliness, and I think this film does that really well. Of like at different points of, you don't actually know who's feeling really lonely at this point, because you have Benji who goes up to every member of the tour group and basically says, "Why are you alone? Let's talk," which is an actual thing that happened on set between him and Jennifer Grey. But that leaves David alone, and you get the sense of him feeling loneliness and the struggles of the film. It's really done really well in the film.
Yeah. Did you know that was improv when he went up to Marsha and went, why are you walking on your own, you fucking loser? That was improv. He was just told, go talk to Marsha. And then Benji's character he opens up connections with people really well, and kind of he talks about real, and Kieran Culkin talks about how Benji wants to get to the realness of people, and he cuts into it really quickly, I think.
There's some beautiful moments for Benji, as much as there is a lot of, how should we say, problematic moments. There are some beautiful moments. There's like the one right at the start where they're going through the airport. David is really stressed. He's like, and then Benji's having like a laugh and a joke with the security staff, which is just illegal. Should not have been allowed to joke with those people. And then going forward, the bathroom scene where he's like, "Come join me in the bathroom." It's really weird. He's like, "A, thank you for bringing me here, and B, thank you for being such a nice person." And by the way, you have super nice feet.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, that was a weird moment. That was so weird.
So think about this. And
But again, it's another moment. It's another moment of levity, isn't it? It's another moment of like just trying to bring the the comedy in.
Snaps you right out of the beautiful moment where he's like, "Thank you so much for this experience. Thank you so much for bringing our relationship back up to surface level." And then they come out of it, and he's like, "Your feet, fantastic."
What's hilarious to me about that is just to step away from the characters a little bit, but Jesse Eisenberg has a scene in the film complimenting his feet when he wrote the screenplay and thus had to write about another person complimenting his feet.
Are you equating it to like when Matt Damon wrote many good lines for himself in Good Will Hunting? I don't think it's quite the same.
Or are you equating it to Don John when Joseph Gordon-Levitt wrote him as a sex addict whose girlfriend is Scarlett Johansson?
Again.
Such a weird pickup to be like, he wrote this film and wants people to compliment his feet.
Right, if you ever meet Jesse Eisenberg, you now have to say, I want to see your feet, I want to see if they're really good.
Just beware if he's ever in a Tarantino movie.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
You're going to see Jesse. I think that's his way into every Tarantino movie, and he's just future-proofing his income.
But just go back to them actually as characters. I enjoyed. I liked their depiction of, again, as I think I said earlier, like, they're cousins, they're basically brothers.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that thing of they're quite different people. As there's one point in the film where David says, Benji has the ability to walk into a room and light it up immediately, and he's jealous of that.
Before shitting on everything.
Yeah, but in some ways, Benji, you can tell, is slightly jealous of David in the way of like he has basically his life sorted out. He has a kid. He's quite jealous of that. He repeats watching the video of his little son talking about facts about tall buildings, which is very, very cute. They're both slightly jealous of each other in one way, not in the others. But I think it's a real true show of like what family is and how they interact with each other. Like, at the end of as I said, they're there going on this pilgrimage because their grandmother died. And, Benji's been through a tough time, has obviously, suicidal thoughts.
Actions.
And they want to bring their like relationship back on track, essentially, because, David is very, David felt the grief of potentially losing his cousin. And I think this scene all comes up, when they're at the restaurant one night and, Benji basically has one of his erratic moments at the table when Marsha is trying to tell a story about her family. And there was one line in the film that I wrote down, which I think sums up family relationships quite well. He basically says, I love him and I hate him and I'm jealous of him. But that's what family is. I think that's really true. As someone who comes from a very big family, I love all of them. Don't get me wrong. Like, I will do anything for them. I also hate them at the same time. Every single one of them. I just want them to just want to tell them to shut the fuck up and leave me alone. But I love them. I love them. Obviously.
I love the dinner table scene.
It's good because no one from my family listens to this podcast, so it's great. I can say what the hell I like.
You can say what you want.
Or you're about to find out they all do. Imagine.
You want us to tell us shut up, huh? I loved the dinner table scene because I found an article where it basically said that Benji displays a lot of the characteristics of someone who's bipolar.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
100%.
The episode of the dinner table scene mirrors episodes he's had during the film.
Mm.
But where the whole tone changes, he just disrupts what everyone's talking about and just brings everyone down, if that's the right way of putting it.
Yeah. They discussed the piano playing in the restaurant and he says...
I really enjoyed having Nagila playing. I did want to get up and dance for a second, but anyway, carry on, James.
I love the tequila song.
But he said fucking anti-Semites. And then the tour guide's like, they're trying to manage him. And the tour guide goes, the owners of this restaurant are Jewish.
Having Nagila's a tune. Welcome anywhere.
It's like, it's cliche, but it's not anti-Semitic. He's trying to say. And he has a couple of moments like that in that scene where he just interjects saying, like, he swears a lot. And he's like, and I think he kind of drives them like connection that way just by being lighthearted. But also when he's not being lighthearted and he's being rude or judgy, the tone of it just completely shifts, and he just comes across like a twat. Like this scene, I thought he came across as one sad, like a sad case, but horror, not very nice.
No, but then it just flips at the end of the scene as well, where he gets up and like he's telling the he just interrupts like a really deep story, burps, flicks a fork across the room, and then goes, right, pee-pee time.
Yeah.
The whole mood is just like back to everyone is in the place now of, okay, we kind of know what he is now.
And Jesse Eisenberg playing David has, his monologue of saying, and I actually think Jesse Eisenberg acted beautifully, not just in this scene, but throughout the whole film.
This is my favorite scene in the film, and Jesse Eisenberg absolutely smashes it out of the park. I did not know he had this range at all.
I think he acts it beautifully. And I think the scene as it comes all the way back around when Benji just sits and playing the piano, and it's really beautiful. And just touching on the music in the film, I do think this, as I said before, Chopin, basically all the piano music in the background of this is Chopin, who's a Polish composer. And I think all the pieces they're picked are beautifully picked for each time they come up in the movie.
It's really nice and simple, I think, but I feel like the emotion of each scene is very wonderfully conveyed. I think you feel sadness, you feel happiness, and like around the tour, you kind of, I think there's moments of the piano where you feel quite uplifted and inquisitive. I think it's really simple, nice, and just it works really well with the camera direction. Jesse Eisenberg David in this scene in the restaurant, I think, is brilliant because David goes off, and I think it's very relatable. It's like how when you start talking about, it's finally his opportunity to talk to the group when David's gone about how he feels about his grandma, how he feels about how David behaves in a way, as I think, Johnny, you mentioned this quote earlier, I think it was in the scene where he goes, he lights up every room and then he shits on it. And you kind of all know who he is. And everyone's very positive about him. They're like, he's such a wonderful guy. He really understands everyone, but then he is troubled and there's a sadness. And it's a sadness that Benji has found in other characters through the film. He feels there's a sadness behind Marsha's eyes, and they end up with a nice relationship.
Yeah, are they having sex?
No, yes. I don't think.
Anyone else think that?
I don't think so, because I think that lowers the emotional.
They spent all night together.
Yeah.
But I feel like that diminishes the emotional context of their relationship during the film. But fair play if they do. But like he knows
they're not real people.
No. In the context of the film, they are. He notices the sadness behind other people's eyes, but they don't notice his. But David talks about him in such an emotional way about his grief of his grandma, and I think it's how, I don't know, if I talk about emotional things in my life, you start on one thing, you get to the other, and it kind of like snowballs, and then you're like oversharing, and then you get emotional, and then you find yourself crying about what you're talking about. It's really realistic. I didn't know he could cry like that in a film. I didn't cry during this one. Like me and Charlie talked about, we've cried in loads of the films we watched. But this was a scene that hit me, and he talks, he expresses himself so well, and he really loves Benji. But I think I've watched, in my research, someone mentioned that a lot of the things he loves about Benji, whether he's jealous and also caring, we find out that Benji tried to commit suicide, and that's the only image he's got in his head is of Benji on the sofa in his mum's basement, passed out after ODing. So he's not just grieving his grandma, he's grieving Benji, who's still there, and he's terrified of it happening again. He expresses that really well, but he also wants to be Benji, and a lot of the things he's upset about with Benji is in the context of a little bit of selfishness. It's like how Benji is with him, how Benji makes him feel and what they do together. He always talks about, you're amazing and you make me happy. But he's ultimately a guy that struggles to express his emotions and struggling to express how much he loves Benji for who he is. And yeah, just it's the best scene in the film.
After that, you come back into the film when they go off there on their own. They have their scene on the roof where basically all of what James just said comes out, and they're smoking a joint on the roof, and that's a really nice scene. Going into like the final act of the film, when they actually go to their grandmother's house, they find it. I think it's a real juxtaposition of when they do their really nice sentimental thing of placing the stone on the doorstep, or stoop is apparently what the word is in American. Yeah. On the doorstep. I think that's a really nice, touching thing. But then it immediately gets taken away of just some guy yelling at them in Polish, going, essentially, what the fuck are you doing? Because I think this, and obviously they have the conversation in English with, I assume, that guy's son, of like, we're trying to be sentimental here. But I think what this scene is trying to say, and in terms of what their relationship is trying to say, is a bit of, even though we hold on to the past quite a lot, we also have to remember that life does just go on. Like, whatever happens, life, unfortunately, just has to move forward and has to find a way. And that's, someone else is living there now. The house hasn't been empty for 80 years. Someone else lives there, and they could trip over the stones, which I found quite a funny joke.
I did think that immediately as soon as they put the stones down. I was like, they're putting it on someone else's doorstep.
Like, someone lives there.
Yeah.
Let's put it on like a windowsill or something.
Yeah, you say, life goes on. Alex said it when we were talking about the trip to the concentration camp scene of, life is just over there 2 miles down the road, and it just goes on.
Mm.
Like, irrespective of the horror here, life is going on there as if nothing's happening. And it's the same. Like, life has moved on for that house or whoever lives in it. I think that they're trying to grab onto the past, but it's fleeting. As we have to move on. We have to try and deal with our grief in a way that we can move on.
The pacing of the film, from the dinner table scene right through to them then being in the hotel doing the weed, Benji doing the wife, and then them at the doorstep getting shouted at by the Polish couple. We don't know their father and son.
I think they're father and son.
We don't know their father and son. It's not explained. Or is it explained? I think he does say my father, actually. Yeah, I think he does say my father.
He's a nonce.
Oh, God.
No, Chandler, you're taking away from the emotion. Through to the airport scene. But it's just fantastic. Like you guys mentioned the slap earlier, where he tells the whole story when they're at the doorstep putting the rocks down, that he went for dinner at a nice posh hotel on Fifth Avenue or something with his grandmother once, and she slapped him because he was late. And he was like, when she slapped me, it wasn't just her slapping me. It was, she cared about me more than she cared about what everyone else thought. She was worried about me. And at the end of all that nicely paced story, you just get that slap to bring us all back into the room.
Yeah.
Almost.
The relieve the tension, as I said earlier, like the comic relief. And again, like, this is the weird thing in it. Like, I think this shows how this specific next 4 minutes, like literally the end of the film, shows how tough, mental health issues are.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not just gotten over within one trip. Because David invites him over for dinner, and he says no. Like, he's trying to basically say, like, all right, let's, we've spoken about how our relationship isn't as good as it used to be. We don't see each other anymore. Okay. This, that was David's olive branch to say, let's make like a thing of this, right? He goes home, and I thought the nice moment of him putting the stone on his doorstep of his apartment building was quite nice.
Yeah.
And like a symbol of, like, he'll never forget his grandma as long as they live there. And he gets his moment with his son, who's played by his actual son, I think, and his wife, not Jesse Eisenberg's actual wife, is just his kid. That was a really nice story. But then, David just sits at the airport again, as we did for the first scene. They're mirrored shots, essentially, the first and the last shot of the film. And I think it's basically to say, like, no, unfortunately, unfortunately, Benji is going to go just back to what he was before the trip, which is basically just
struggling
and drifting through life. And it's like, I don't know, my one thing was like, it sort of shows how hard, mental health issues are. They're not gotten over within a week. They're things you have to work on and keep working on.
And that's the beautiful symbolism of that scene. When that camera pans around all of the people and you find him sat on the chair, and as it comes up to a close-up of him, the title of the film comes in right next to his face, which is a real pain. Poetic.
I found that they got home when they were back at the airport quite abrupt, and I don't know, that feels like how a trip often ends. It's like, oh, we were here and now we're gone. It's done. That trip's in the past.
Yeah.
Which I quite liked. Benji, that shot of Benji sat in the chair, zooming in, through a video, someone made a great comment of how, I think you say the same thing. Benji is stuck. He's going to be the same person. But it also talks about his loneliness, because Benji's okay with going up to everyone and becoming everyone's friend. And everyone in that airport, he's kind of looking around and he wants to people watch. Anyone there could be his friend, but ultimately he's lonely. And even though he's surrounded by people, he's still lonely. Because I think the initial part of the shot, brilliant character acting. Apparently the screenplay, the last line of the screenplay mentions on that, like, you know, loneliness, I believe. And Jesse Eisenberg wanted to talk to Kieran Culkin about the scene. He was like, no, I know what it is. Let's just shoot it. But he didn't. He said, no, we're shooting it. And he sits there and he's looking around and he's got this like kind of amused, happy-ish face on and looking at, and he kind of like looks over to the person next to him and the camera's zooming in and then his face goes really like very subtle changes, very subtle facial changes. But it focuses on the sadness behind his eyes before, as Alex said, the title comes up and then he's kind of showing his chirp, you know, that face to the world, that mask, the chirpiness again. And I think it's an excellent bit of character acting from Kieran Culkin. I think his performance was really, 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 really fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Kieran Culkin's performance is very good. I think the contrast of when he's in his erratic moments, or when he's in his sad moments, or when he's just being thankful that that David is trying to make this trip good for him, is very, very good. My kind of controversial opinion on this film, I don't think it's like, I'd not seen this film, and the only thing I'd heard about this film is how good Kieran Culkin was in it and how groundbreaking his portrayal is.
And winning the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
And obviously winning the Oscar is why this film is in this trilogy that we're doing now. I actually think out of the two of them, I actually prefer Jesse Eisenberg's performance in this film to Kieran Culkin's, and surprised to see that he wasn't even nominated for, you know, Best Actor. I'm also surprised that Kieran Culkin is nominated in the supporting role category, because they're both the lead of the film. Like, it's not like Jesse Eisenberg is the lead and he's not. They're both leading the film.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a surprise that he was nominated in supporting role.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can argue about classification, but I also think I actually kind of think that if my favorite performance from the film is actually Jesse Eisenberg's and not Kieran Culkin's, because sometimes I find it's quite, you know, in a sense, when you're watching more outgoing characters, their performances are lauded upon, but I think the more introspective characters and actors aren't. And that's why I think that Jesse Eisenberg's performance comes out more for me than Kieran Culkin's.
I think for the Oscar nominees for Best Actor, he wasn't even part of it. It was Coleman Domingo, Timothée Chalamet, Sebastian Stan, Ralph Fiennes, and Adrian Brody. Like, he didn't even get nominated. Probably, like you say, because it was an understated performance. He is, and I think James pointed out earlier, he is very much there to direct the film and support Kieran Culkin.
Yeah.
In that role. He's not there to not steal the limelight, to be the attention. He is there to basically, it's really strange that the lead actor is actually the supporting actor, and the supporting actor is actually the lead actor, in terms of, like, he's just sort of saying, go, Kieran, do the amazing scene where you annoy everyone at the dinner table, or kick off because you're in first class on a train.
I don't think that Kieran Culkin is a supporting actor. Like,
I think
you can have more than one lead in a film. They're both lead acting the film. They're the main act. They're the main both of them are main characters in the film. Therefore, Kieran Culkin should, if he were to be nominated, should be nominated in a Best Actor role. However, my opinion is Jesse Eisenberg's performance is actually more nomination worthy than Kieran Culkin's. It's my hot, stupid take.
I disagree a bit. I think there's only one scene in the film which makes me think Jesse Eisenberg should have been nominated for something, and that is the dinner scene. Because otherwise, I think he's not. I don't want to say one note, but because you can read how he's feeling, and you can tell he's struggling with his own grief and troubles as well. But I think really there's only one scene where I'm like, wow, from him. Whereas I think throughout the entire movie, I'm like quite wowed by Kieran Culkin, and I completely understand who he is as a character. I'm happy when he's being positive, and he irritates me when he's being irritating. And I mean, I'm feeling what the intention is, and I feel like you can relate to what all the other characters are feeling around Benji and Kieran Culkin. Jesse Eisenberg was nominated for best, I think, for his larger work on the movie, which was best screenplay at the Oscars, and he won best screenplay at Sundance, where this film premiered for the first time in 2023 or 4. Yeah, 2024. I think Kieran Culkin deserves the best supporting performance, but I do completely agree with you that you could argue that he is the lead and should be. But however, I would say the lens of the movie is David's. You aren't seeing the world through Benji's eyes. You're seeing the world through David's eyes, and you're seeing Benji through David's eyes. So that's why he's probably supporting.
No, hang on. No, because if you're seeing the world through David's eyes, therefore you're seeing Benji more, therefore he is leading. But anyway.
Semantics.
That's a lesser point. I actually disagree again, because I think we've actually skipped past it a little bit, but there's a scene on the roof where they're smoking the joint and Benji's wearing his weird fedora. That scene, again, I think you feel the sadness and anger of David finding or seeing the image of Benji on his couch. So I disagree that it's a one-note performance minus one scene. I think it's a very layered performance throughout from Jesse Eisenberg throughout multiple scenes, not just the dinner scene.
Well, okay, one note's not the right word to say, but on that Emma Stone point I made earlier, consistent performance. It's a consistent performance from Jesse Eisenberg. He's not up and down here or there.
What's wrong? Hang on. What's wrong with a consistent performance of you know exactly what a character is feeling? Is that not what the acting's supposed to be?
No. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But I'm just saying how like Kieran Culkin is having to tackle a lot of things, whereas Jesse Eisenberg kind of has to just keep consistent. Whereas I think my big stupid hot take, I think people always laud people playing the Joker, whereas I'm like, we're playing a nutter. Like, they just have to play a nutter. It's like Heath Ledger's performance is incredible, but some of the other performances are like, he's just playing a nutter. I don't think that's necessarily incredible. Whereas I think Kieran Culkin's performance in this is he's not just playing a nutter. The layers are there to see. He is the onion and we're peeling him back. Whereas I think Jesse Eisenberg is playing, you understand who he is, and nothing is surprising, or that I don't find anything punches you in the face with the performance, bar maybe a couple of scenes. That's not to say it's not good. I think he's exceptional, and it's different from what I've seen from Jesse Eisenberg. He's normally quite comical. I love how he is in this film. I didn't know he had it in him, but I think he's brilliant. But I can completely see why Kieran Culkin won the award.
I do agree. Like, to use your Batman reference, I enjoyed Heath Ledger in that film, but when Christian Bale screamed, "Where are they?" I was like, oh yeah, you give him an Oscar for it. Where are they? He's asking the right question. But I think I did know that Jesse Eisenberg had it in him. Like, Now You See Me, he plays a quite confident performer, whereas normally he's quite a weedy guy. Like, I think Zombieland is like the perfect role for him.
Yeah.
What a film.
Great film.
Very nervous, wandering around with a shotgun. That's Jesse Eisenberg. But I think he could have played the character of Benji well. Would it have won an Oscar? Probably not. There's something about Kieran Culkin's natural style, like what he plays in Succession, that just worked so well for Benji. Now it's time for the three takes.
I really liked this film. I think it's a really, really good film. And now I'm really excited to see the future of Jesse Eisenberg as a screenwriter and a director, because I really like the way it was shot. And I really love the performances. And I think the story is excellent. And it's all wrapped up in 90 minutes. A lot of the films we do are 2 hours. And trust me, sometimes when you don't want to watch a film, but you have to prep for this, it can be tough at times. But this is a nice hour and a half. And the pacing of it is really, really nice. In the context of the Oscar and the awards, it was nominated for Best Screenplay as well. As I say, Jesse Eisenberg, I think, has done an exceptional job. I mean, he wrote a film before this that ended up becoming this, where two kind of friends go on a trip, I believe it's called Mongolia, and two college friends, one's impulsive, one's grounded. They travel to Asia to have the experience of a lifetime, only to find it not going the way they wanted. And then that slowly developed into this movie when he watched I think a tourism advert for Poland, and he kind of changed it into it. So I'm completely intrigued to see where he goes with it. It's an emotional film. I think it tackles tough subjects in a wonderfully lighthearted way you don't often see. And then Kieran Culkin winning Best Supporting Actor. I've touched on it already. I think his performance is really, really good. He brings this eccentric yet damaged character who has really relatable struggles, and the way he approaches every other character in the film and his relationships is really well done. There's one character on the tour who's not, we didn't really need to mention much because they weren't as key, but it's an older couple and the husband is just like, this guy's a waste of space. Whereas everyone else kind of sees the good and bad sides of him, but understands ultimately he's a good person, really, and he's so good at making relationships. But that just makes him all the more tragic. Sometimes it's the funniest, lighthearted people that that are going through the toughest stuff. And there's loads of examples of that in cinema, but it doesn't take away from the performance of Kieran Culkin. It starts at the airport where he just got there early to be there, but like loads of hours early, and it ends the same way. And although you feel like he's had a good experience on the trip, ultimately, as Chandler mentioned, he does end up in the same place, and that is sad, where kind of both characters go on a journey of dealing with their grief, but ultimately life stays the same and life has to move on. And the title's just perfect. Benji is a real pain, and he is feeling a real pain, and the characters are experiencing real pain. Good film. Would recommend. It's only an hour and a half. Go and watch it. Really fun. I say fun. Really, really touching.
Really fun.
Really touching. Really touching. Really touching. And a good watch. A really good watch.
My overall take is, it's a good film. As you say, it's a short film, which is quite nice. I think, as you say, like Jesse Eisenberg's like style of the whole film and the screenplay is really good. I quite enjoy the fact that this is telling a very touching story, a meaningful story, an emotional story in a very concise way. Like it's not dragged out over 2.5, 3 hour long, like some films are nowadays or have been in the past. So on that sense, it's really good. It's helped, as someone who has some, connection to the story that it's trying to tell, I think it is done it is handled in a very good way, in a very touching way. So I would recommend this film for other people to watch, especially people who, as I said before, like me, would one day want to go see some of the camps and, try and feel the real connection to that part of history. So I would recommend it. It was a good film. The way it's shot is really well, is done really well. As you mentioned before, James, cinematography is beautiful within the film. And the acting, in terms of what it won an award for, I think, as I've said literally not 5 minutes ago, I do think Kieran Culkin's performance is good, and I do enjoy his performance, and it does show the duality of someone going through those struggles can have. As I said before, I still think Jesse Eisenberg's performance is better. So, but I think, do I think he deserved to win an award? Probably. Like I do think that ultimately, I just think Jesse Eisenberg deserved to win as well, probably then. But 100% recommend this film. Go watch it if you haven't. Alex?
I think it's a beautiful film from start to finish in every sense of the word. I think that the story is deep, comedic, and an educational one, from like the super nice feet to putting a stone on the oldest grave in the graveyard, even to the walk around the concentration camp. It makes you feel for the characters. I think every character's story is told perfectly. I don't think you need to know any more or any less about them. And I think the best character is the scenery, is the place that they're in. Lubin is a beautiful place to take a film crew. And even the crappy little train station that they walk along where they get off the train and miss the stop, fantastic. And to the hotel room that's got a tiny, tiny bathroom in it where they get told about really nice feet, fantastic. There's not a scene I'd change or shoot somewhere else if I was an Oscar-winning director, which I'm not yet. Exactly. Well, you never know. I'd hate to be in that position and not win it because of this. I think it's a fantastic movie about two people just trying to find themselves and find their past in this trip, but also come to terms with their loss and put their grief in the right place, even if it is a little stone on someone's doorstep. But it's still them moving on. In terms of Oscar winners, should it be an Oscar winner? Yes. Should it be a multi-Oscar winner? Nah. Well then, we've toured Poland, we've worked out why Kieran Culkin has earned his Oscar, while Jesse Eisenberg should have earned his Oscar, and why Emma Stone was a fantastic producer. Maybe. This is the end of the first of the Oscars 2025 trilogy. Join us next time for Chandler's pick.
A complete unknown.
An Oscars loser.
Yeah, which is a biopic of the one and only Bob Dylan. I don't even like Bob Dylan that much, but yeah.
I'm excited to watch Timothée Chalamet
me too.
perform.
I'm actually excited to hear Bob Dylan.
Or in the Adam Sandler way, Chalamet!
I don't get the reference.
It's literally from the Oscar ceremony. But anyway.
I don't care. We don't watch the Oscars. It goes on for too long. It's really boring. Anyway, that's goodbye from James.
See ya.
It's goodbye from Chandler.
See ya.
And it's goodbye from me, Widensia, which is goodbye in Polish.
Shalom.
Well, James, you can't say shalom.
Why?
Don't forget to rate, review, and share the podcast. It really helps us grow. Follow us on all our socials, plus our individual Letterboxd accounts. The links can be found in the description at www.hopwithtwopies.bio/3takes or search for 3 Takes of Stupidity on most platforms. Please send us your film and series suggestions on our Hop page or to 3takesofstupidity@gmail.com. Thank you and hope to see you soon.